What's up, everybody? What's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Lead From Here podcast. I'm Jason. Today, we are talking about how to lay out the plan for your year ahead. It's easy to talk about goals and your company that you work for or the organization you're in. They all have goals for you to accomplish. And if you haven't already set those yet, I'm sure you'll be setting them in the beginning of Q1. I'm talking about more you personally as a leader. How do you develop yourself? How do you develop your team? And how do you lay out that plan for the year to come? Because as basically everybody says, a goal is important to actually lay it out, write it down, and put it on paper of like where you're going. Because it kind of helps you be accountable to you, but it also is something that you can use with your people and be like, listen, this is what I'm striving for as a leader to do for you, to do for the company, to do for myself, to do whatever. Because it also engages them and helps them feel like they also can do the same thing for their careers and for their teams if you lead leaders, and for their families if you have people that have families or friends or where they volunteer or anything. It unlocks people to do the same thing for them. So don't just write it down and put it in your notebook till the end of the year. Write it down, talk about it, share it, revisit it. But ultimately, that's what it is you got to get goals down. And how do you know what goals to set? And that's actually a great question to ask yourself, which I know is kind of throwing it back on you. But ultimately, what you need to know as a leader and as an individual is what do you need to accomplish in this year to come? Is your team strong in every facet it possibly could be? Are you strong in every facet you possibly could be? Are there things holding you back personally? There are things holding you back professionally that you notice or feel. And let me tell you, one of the great places to do that is to ask your people, ask your closest friends. If you're married, ask your spouse, where could you improve in this year? And then start going after those things. For me, focus. Focus has been something that I need to see. I mean, it's right here. That's on my desk at all times, because focus is something that I struggle with. I like to have 100 candles burning at both ends and balancing all this stuff and doing all these things personally, professionally, everything. And this podcast is a great example of that. Ultimately, these are things that I am passionate about, and that includes my work. And there's a lot of things at work I'm passionate about. I'm deeply focused on data and understanding how to make people and teams better. So I'm constantly trying to learn and constantly trying to find data and find different ways to correlate data and all those things. And that can pull a lot of things away from the people management stuff and the strategy stuff. So I really have to stay focused on what's important in the moment and finding time, cutting out time. And sometimes that's not during the workday. Sometimes that's, at night or super early in the morning when I wake up, all opportunities to grow and push and find gaps. So that's what I do is I look at, hey, what is my number one goal for the year? And that is to improve my focus. This year will be different because ultimately I feel like I've got the focus thing down pretty well now. So really next year will be a different goal. But ultimately for focus, I said, okay, what do I need to learn with it? Focus. So one, I needed to find a platform to manage all of my information, my notes, my to-dos, my people management stuff, my schedule, all those things, to-do lists, task managers, all those things. A lot of different apps did that for me. And I found a couple apps that kind of got there, but ultimately I haven't found the app yet. But the few apps I'm using now are allowing me to be very effective in keeping focused and setting out chunks of time. So I spent a lot of time in time management, understanding time management, all the different principles you can use and all the different types of time management you use. We're going to talk about that here very soon in the podcast. But ultimately, those are the things that you have to understand is, this is my goal. And you break that goal into chunks and focus on it for a month or a quarter or whatever, however big it is. If it's more like soft skilly, where you're learning to be more attentive or a more active listener, or you're trying to be a better public speaker, any of those things are things that over time you will have to figure out how to do. And it's probably not going to be a month. It might be a quarter, it might be a half year. It might even be the whole year. But ultimately, whatever that goal is, you want to break it into chunks. I'm not saying anything new, but write it down. Write down what your goal is for the quarter. And then break that down again. What do I need to do every month to make sure? I need to make sure once a month I'm doing a public speaking opportunity, whether that's a meeting or presenting somewhere or doing a Toastmasters or whatever. Set that, hey, once a month I need to do this. All right, so now you have your goals. laying those out in a to-do list or milestones or however you want to manage it, whether it's a notebook. Some people are very like write it down. I'm very digital, so I live in the digital space, so I like to keep it in my to-do app, and that's it's all personal preference, right? You just have to figure out what works for you. So the last thing to do is take all that information, all the data and your plan, and execute, because without execution, all of those plans mean nothing. And that's where it's a lot of people will set the goals and they'll put in their notebook, set that notebook aside till the next quarter or till the end of the year, and they'll look back and say, did I do that? Yeah, probably. I'll just start new goals next year. Or no, I didn't, but whatever. Ultimately, the execution part is the most crucial part. And if you're not doing that, you're going to put yourself in a situation where year over year, you're not improving, which allows you to stagnate, which allows you to not be in a space where you want to be, which is in growth. Because if you're not growing, you are dying. And especially in today's age, like, you have to be growing. Yeah, I hope this was helpful. If you have any more questions or want to ask or we want to talk about, I hope this is helpful. If you want to talk about anything more, like what tools I'm using, things like that, hit me up, throw them into the comments. Like, let's talk about it. I'm happy to share some of the things that I do, but also I don't have a really strong plan with these 3 apps that I'm in yet. I like them and they work well, but I don't have a system built around them yet. So more to come on that. Probably, but if you want to hear more specifically about like what I do, like from an actual task management and to-do list, let me know. Otherwise, hopefully this was helpful. Hope you all had a great new year and hope 2024 is amazing for you. Take care, everybody.